This episode brought to you by Nomadic Research, built for the wild and forged in adversity. Somewhere between the front lines and the firelight, a vision was born. The founders of Nomadic Research spent years in the harshest environments on Earth, where grit and resilience weren't just words, but a way of life. They saw a need for gear that could handle anything, gear that wasn't just built, but built to last. From battlefields to backcountry trails, every piece of Nomadic Research gear is designed with one mission: unyielding performance for those who refuse to quit. The founders believe in patriotism, personal responsibility, and the freedom of the great outdoors, because adventure isn't just a weekend escape, it's a way of life. Born in the heart of Afghanistan, forged in adversity, and built for the wild, Nomadic Research is gear for those who go further. You can start your adventure at nomadicresearch.com. In 3, 2, 1, and we're live. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the DTD podcast, Dynamic Tales Delivered. Today's guest has walked through fire, bullied and beaten as a kid, nearly lost to suicide, and pushed to the brink by injury and trauma. He served first as a Marine, then as a Navy SEAL, enduring some of the toughest combat and physical trials imaginable. But through the grace of God and an unbreakable will to overcome, he's turned his pain into purpose. Now a strength coach, a speaker, and a mental health advocate, he's here to show us what resilience really looks like. Please welcome Tommy Richardson. What's going on, my friend?
Man, how you doing? Appreciate you having me.
I am so happy that we're getting this done. And I got to tell you that, I was first approached by other people about your story. Then I started looking into it, and seeing you now and seeing the pictures that you sent me from when you were a kid and stuff like that. It's just an unbelievable path that you've taken. I want to start this conversation off by asking you the definition of something in your life. What does it mean to overcome?
Well, it means that no matter what's going to come up against you, no matter the odds, you can't have any type of limits, right? You almost have to welcome it. You have to think oppositely, where most people will run from a challenge or they want to do what's easy. I go with what's hard, and you're going to overcome absolutely everything that you possibly can with the right type of mindset, the right attitude, and the right tools to go behind it. So it's doing whatever it takes to get the job done.
In reading everything about you, when you just gave that definition, do you think that your definition of overcome has evolved over the years? Because from reading back in the past and then what you do now, I believe that it has.
Oh, absolutely. It's a complete tempering process, right? I mean, it's the sharpest and best and toughest of blades happen under the greatest amount of pressure and the greatest amount of heat. And the more that you go through, the more your idea of how things are supposed to be and the way you're able to overcome, it's a stair-step process. I didn't come out this way, the way that I am now. It's just been a series of trials, tribulations, and environmental situations that have led me to where I'm at right now and to the mindset that I have.
Well, and I would even go so far as to say that the overcoming to me and how it's changed in your definition is, I feel like in your past, you used to just power through stuff, no matter what, just power through it. Now you take kind of a holistic approach to overcoming things. You look at not necessarily the easiest way, but you work a lot smarter instead of harder.
Well, you got to work smarter to work harder.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I mean, in beginning, life beat me to my knees, man. And I almost succumbed to it. And I believe I got a word from the good Lord that said, hey, man, I got something for you. And I listened and started charging. And by all means, it was the too dumb to quit. Green crayons are tasty. And we're just going to keep pushing. But yeah, absolutely headlong. But I think wisdom comes with age and experience. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about as to how things have evolved.
I think so. So let's go back to your childhood and let's talk about it, because I think that in all of your stuff, I think it's a really weird dichotomy of your relationship with your parents, with just people in general as a child. You make sure to mention the point that you understand now as you're older and as a dad what your dad wanted from you.
Right.
But when you look back on that relationship as a child, it was a very different look at how you and him interacted with each other. Would you agree with that?
100%. Absolutely. Perspective changes things. You don't understand things, especially as a child. You think things are being done to you, and it's just there was no rhyme, there's no reason. It's just a lot of anger being taken out for no reason. It seemed there weren't explanations. I mean, it was the '80s, man. People were pretty much left to our own devices, which is fine. It made us tough, right? But as far as like a relationship, it just didn't happen.
So, can we talk a little bit about the relationship and how you kind of viewed it back then and how you view it now?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Back then it was really strict. Everything was about grades, and it was constant pressure, and everything revolved around it. You can't go out and play until you get your schoolwork done. You can't do this, that, and the other. You can't do this. All I care about A's. I would bring bad papers home, and just I was waiting for the freaking thunder to start coming and tossing my papers up in the air and just screaming that, why can't you do better and this, that, and the other, and you're playing around too much and blah, blah, blah. It's just like you couldn't do nothing right, you know? And it evolved over time. And I think it was because of, I didn't understand the dynamics that he went through growing up with his parents. And he didn't really know how to, I don't know, I guess work and deal with his anger. And my mom was a strict disciplinarian. Also, it was the rapid fire belt fed questions all the time, to the point to where I would just write answers down, tape it to a piece of paper, tape it to the back of my door, shut my door, and lock it, because I knew what questions were coming. And it was just like, I felt like I was getting battered. And like I said, I couldn't do right, and the one line, I hate saying it, man, but it's the truth. The one line I will never forget my father saying to his brother when I was at a martial art, it wasn't a tournament. I think it was a belt advancement exam when I started doing martial arts. And he said, he really is a pussy. Excuse my French, but that was a quote, direct quote, right? And
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to bring that up.
I hung on to that, man. But again, I don't think he knew how to express himself. Me being where I am as a dad, it was one of those things where in life I just became something. I wanted to beat him at everything, period. Right. And come to find out through his own trials and tribulations that he wasn't all he made himself out to be. So I beat him at everything he ever did, and I couldn't stop. It put something inside me that said, you're never going to be good enough. Nothing's ever good enough. You got to keep going. And then that evolved as I understand and actually matured in Jesus, man. And that kind of changed my perspective. It absolutely changed my perspective on everything. But being where I am now, I just understand he was trying his best. My parents were. They weren't rich. They didn't have a lot of money, and they showed up. That's another thing that I think I kind of took for granted also. I mean, all my travel games for basketball, all my travel track meets, they were always there. And regardless of how I felt, and hearing things from the stands or whatever, they showed up. And back then that was a big deal. But it wasn't a relationship where I could actually converse what was really kind of going on in my head, and especially not the ending it all, that type of thing. But like I said, it just changed. And in the end, I understand. I forgave him for everything that he did to his face. Same thing with my mom. And I said, I understand. You guys worked at your highest capacity to do your best at what it is that you could do in raising me. And I get that. And that was their best. It's nothing against them. It's just, that was their best, and they didn't know any better.
They ever tell you they loved you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All the time.
More so later on in life. My mom, more so than my dad. It's funny, man. The one time I remember my dad saying that he was proud of me was when I graduated Buds. And he stood next to me. He didn't even look at me eye to eye. He stood next to me and he just said, "Proud of you, boy." Right after they pinned a trident on me. And I'd already been in the Marine Corps for, almost a decade. So
with a lot of stuff that you'd already done in the Marine Corps.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yes. So I don't know, man, but it's one of those things where, again, and as I started diving deeper and deeper into the word, into the Bible, man, understanding that my Father in heaven is the one that's perfect, and that's the example that I'm supposed to follow. And that we're all flawed, and we all screw up, and we all have, and we all will, and we all fall short, man. So what we have to do is just kind of try to understand the environment that shaped the individual, and then dive into their mindset, and then go, okay, from there, was any of this nefarious? No, none of it was. I don't think it was at all. It's just who that individual is as a person. And then that gets portrayed onto me. And that's fine. I'm not going to be sit on Oprah and whine and cry about it's my parents' fault, because after the age of reason, you all have, everything's a choice. You got a choice of how you're going to deal with things. But environmental does play a big piece into it.
Okay, so you bring that up. I'm, before we get into what happened as a kid,
sure,
those early betrayals, they definitely shaped your self-worth back then, like we've talked about, that has changed over time.
sure.
But I think the bigger question there would be, how did you unlearn that self-worth? Because it was a very low self-worth back then. So how do you unlearn that?
By understanding that you have something to give. And I think more so when you start turning your efforts towards other people and helping others, you think less of self. And that end gives you self-worth, because that you see the fruits of your labor, like literally right in front of your eyes, whether it be good or whether it be bad. Hopefully it's more on the good side and productive, but you kind of see that. But the more towards you focus on being selfless, the better off you're going to feel about you.
All right. You said the only reason that you're still alive is because of the saving grace of Jesus.
Correct.
You said, and you've said that on numerous interviews, podcasts, your
Right.
writings, all of that kind of stuff. Can you take us back to the moment that you were the closest to ending it all, how you got stopped, and then that voice that talked to you? What does it mean to you now as opposed to then?
Okay. So I was about 14 years old at the time. I was getting, it was 80s bullying, man. So, it wasn't just turn the power button off and the bullying stops. It was, I had to face it every single day, and it was in every aspect of my life. I mean, school, athletics, even church choir, Boy Scouts. I was a lightning rod for getting beat on, and verbally and physically. And, that with the never feeling I can be enough. I never felt like I was enough for my parents. So it was like, why the heck am I living around here anyway? Right. So I remember I went in, and we were a family of hunters. So I knew where all the weapons were. I went and grabbed my dad's pistol. It was a Beretta 9mm. So iffy if it would actually worked, but so grabbed hold of it, and I loaded the mag. I don't know why I did more the whole mag, but and not just one round, but whatever. I remember pulling and putting the pistol up as it was coming up to my head. It was one of those kind of defining moments where you can remember, the feels, the smells, the air, the temperature. You can kind of remember anything, but the thing that kind of stands out most was the shine. I can still remember the shine looking down the barrel at the end of the bullet, of the light going into it. And I started taking the slack out with my thumb, and it's just, I got this audible, first this chill came over me, and then this audible sound said, "Stop, don't do it. I've got something for you." And honestly, it scared me. And that's kind of was my first touch of understanding really what fear of the Lord is. Right. And it's not a bad fear. It's just that thing of like when dad says stop, you stop, that type of thing. And I took the slack out and said, and thought about it for a second. I didn't put the pistol away immediately, and just thought about it. And I went, okay, I don't know what this means, but it was the first time I remember where I have to start pushing through things. Nobody had ever there was no motivational anything. There was no nothing, right? None of that stuff was around. It was mostly just negative coming at you. And I, after some, thinking, zipped the pistol back up, put it back in his closet, and just went back and started thinking about what I was going to do. And I was like, I have to start standing up for myself. I have to start, facing whatever it is. I have to believe in whatever that voice was. Now, I wasn't saved at the time. We grew up Methodist, and, it was one of those, you go to church because you have to, and it was every now and again, but it was like the Christmas and Easter type deal. It wasn't really understanding relationship with Christ, but but having that type of thing, that's what kickstarted it all. And it gave me the ability to start to understand how to overcome trials and tribulations. And as things started happening, as fights started happening, I may not have won all the time, but at least I was fighting back. And I was fighting back. And sometimes I was, sometimes I wasn't. I'd go to the local swimming pool and, people would try to drown me, like legitimately. And honestly, that's where I learned how to do my breath holds. I would take guys to the bottom of the pool and I'd learn how to hold my breath really, really well underneath the water, getting away from those people. And they'd swim away. Or like I said, I'd take them under. And that was it. It's like, all right, well, I fight back. And that kind of told me how to beat bullies as well, is that if you fight back, they're less likely to come back at you because you're now a threat, because they're hurting in their own way. And something's going on to where they need to make themselves feel better by making you feel worse. But when you start showing some teeth, they back down. At least that was my experience. So it was just one thing after the other. And like I said, we were just sharpening the sword, going through the fire, and then one thing after the other. And once I joined the military and deployment started happening, and, got married and kids, and, then team guys stuff starts happening, and we just more combat deployments and more and more and more. And then surgeries start happening, and it just compounded all this stuff. But it just built each tribulation with each trial, built perseverance, just like it said in James chapter 1, chapter 1, verse 2, I believe. You have to rejoice in it. Rejoice in the trials and tribulations, because it's going to establish perseverance. And that's going to give you what you need to handle anything. And so, yeah, it absolutely evolved. It evolved into something that's unbreakable.
When was the first time you told your parents about your suicide? I don't know if I would even call it an attempt. It was definitely close to.
We were teetering. We were walking a line.
When was the first time you talked to them about it?
Never did.
Any reason?
I don't really talk to them much. I converse with them a little bit. I mean, honestly, they barely know anything about what I've done in the military. And it's unfortunate, I get on a call with them or whatever, and I'm on the phone for 3 hours. But I don't know, man, just never happened. It never came up. They were more of, they don't want to talk about the bad stuff, because they never did with their families, because there was some stuff, deep-seated stuff going on with, with both of their sides of the family, and they never wanted to talk about the bad stuff ever. So it never came up about any of it. Never felt the need to, man.
Do you think, though, and I'm talking about not necessarily as an adult, but back then, when you looked at it about talking to them, you've stated that, you never were good enough. It was a rapid fire of questions, all of those kind of things. Do you think at that point you were scared or embarrassed? I don't know what the word would be to talk to them about it. And then as time went on, it just didn't become as important to talk to them.
I didn't think there was ever going to be a resolution, because I would go through like different scenarios in my head about how it was going to go. And then just based off of past experience, I didn't feel like it was going to help. I felt like it was only going to hurt, and I didn't want them to feel bad. And honestly, I've moved past it and I've grown from it. So why bring up something like that didn't matter?
Yeah. The thing I find interesting, and this is what I was saying about that dichotomy, the thing I find interesting about it is you're not afraid to tell the world. You're not afraid to go on podcasts, on interviews, writings, all of that kind of stuff, and talk about it. Yet the two people that it, highly centered around back then were never informed of it.
No, I mean, well, that's the thing, is they never asked, right? People here do. Hey, what shaped you? What, this, that, and the other. But I mean, if your conversations with someone don't go past like the weather or what's hurting you, what boo-boos do you have, and things like that, there's got to be depth to a conversation. And with all of these podcasts, and especially with the way that I'm kind of forming my business now and trying to help people overcome things, that's a critical element of how it all happened, but if they wanted to talk about it, I'd absolutely talk about it. If something came up and there was a depth conversation with them, dude, I 100% would do it. Absolutely.
Do you ever wonder what kind of man that you would have been if someone had told you you were enough back then?
You know, I thought about it and I have no idea. I try not to deal too much in hypotheticals, and especially going back and saying what if, because it makes you then, I think it's opening a door for the enemy to make you start having regrets about things. And then that old cycle of thinking you're not good enough kind of creeps back in. So I don't really think about, you know, what things would have been like. I don't know. I can't say, man. It's just like name your movie that deals with time travel. You go back, change one thing, and the whole world changes. I have no idea, man. What it would have set, what it would have set in motion or not set in motion. Who knows?
I bring that question up because soup bone was an important part of your life.
Yep.
And I don't know that he ever told you you were enough, but he definitely spent the time with you and teaching you how to be that person that you've become today, not even being a father figure. So I asked that question because I think he did tell you, just maybe not in words.
No, absolutely. He did in actions. He was kind of like our Mickey. He was our Mr. Miyagi, myself and the twins, and he played a pivotal role in a critical time in all three of our lives. That kind of showed us how to be tough and showed us how to endure. Because, you know, he would beat the snot out of us, you know, with the exercises, but there would be lessons with that every time. We would learn something every single time. And then afterwards, you know, Miss Diane, his wife, would, you know, bring us, you know, iced tea or water, or we'd have Gatorade or something like that. And then on the weekends, you know, we'd help build up the bread and breakfast. He'd always buy us kolaches and donuts and stuff, and we'd sit and chat. And it was cool, man. And he was always a guy that allowed us to be able to talk to him about absolutely anything. Cause we went dark with him on a lot of different things, but it was just like, that was the relationship that he established. I mean, he came out and the way he got described to me was a bulldog, you know. He's going to scare you. He's going to threaten you. He's going to threaten your manhood, but it's all a test. And knowing that up front kind of helped shape and develop things. And then as it started happening, and then you start realizing that, because he really, man, he hit home the teamwork thing big time, because it was all of us, right? He said, all right, everybody down, push up position. We get down, and he goes, all right, push him out. And then as soon as one person got out of alignment, he stopped us all. And if he didn't have anything going the next day, he would tell us that. He would say, I have nothing going the next day. We are going to be here all night doing this until you three clowns get together and do it right. And he meant it. And there was some long sessions there every now and again that his mouth was writing checks that his butt was cashing. And it played a pivotal role for all of us in teaching us how to overcome things.
So I want to ask you a question. If you don't feel comfortable answering it.
Sure.
Did you ever look at him and everything that you were going through and all the time that you spent with him and wish that he was your father?
No, never. Not at all. No, because I looked at him like Mr. Miyagi. I mean, or like was it Mickey Goldberg? I think was his last name in Rocky. No, I looked at him as my trainer, not as my dad. Eventually became a friend,
right?
But no, I looked at him as a trainer, and that's what he was. I never even thought the thought never even thought. It's like, that was my dad. My dad was my dad. Period.
I just, you know, he's giving you everything that a dad should give you. And now that you look back, your dad was also giving you the stuff. You couldn't see it back then, but he was giving you the stuff that, wow, this is how a father treats his kid and stuff like that. And he teaches him lessons and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting that you say you always just looked at him as a trainer. And I think, you know, maybe with that answer, that may have helped things. That may have let you compartmentalize and start to separate those kind of things.
For sure. No, absolutely. And it was take what you could from who you could, good, bad, it doesn't matter. But everything is a learning experience, and different people are shown and brought to your life for different purposes. And that was his purpose. He served it very well at the time. And then, you know, like I said, it got the three of us through some really pretty heavy stuff.
So let's talk about going into the Marines. Sure. You know, you're beat up all through childhood. You pick the Marines to go into, and you do quite a few things. Let's talk about your entrance into the Marines. how you're changing as a person when you're going into the Marines.
Sure. So my mindset going in was to be, so my mom's brother was kind of seen as the Captain America of the family. He got a lot of respect from pretty much everybody. He was a Marine intel guy, and he was a plank owner of the hostage rescue team. I believe they started up in '83 of the FBI, and he was the guy. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go do that. That's how I'll get respect in my family. But I remember there was a inspection that we were doing, personnel inspection. And I remember the senior drill instructor was coming around the corner, and he was asking guys what they wanted for their MOS, or what they wanted to do. And I remember right as he crested the corner, something just snapped in me and goes, I need to go my own way. And I want to go in, because he was an infantry guy. Right. And I was like, I want to go in the infantry. That's what I want to do. And there was the company gunnery sergeant too, of the company that I was in. He was one of the scariest individuals to this date that I've ever met in my life. The dude was, I mean, he looked like a G.I. Joe character. The dude was shredded. He was jacked. He was huge. He had this screaming eagle, like bleach blonde, high and tight, haircut. He had 2 tattoos on his forearm. One said intensity, and the other one said honor. And just a scary guy. And he was a grunt. I'm going, that's what that right there, that's the one. And that kind of set me out and said, okay, well, we're going to go roll this way, and I'm going to blaze my own path. Yeah, I'm still in the Marines, because there was a couple of members of my family that had gone that direction. And they'd always, first to fight, and, they're the ones, go. So I was like, all right, that'll be it. And then whatever they think is whatever they think. I don't care. I'm going my own way and charge on from there.
So 18 is when you join, correct?
19.
19.
Yeah.
So what year are we in when you're 19?
Well, yeah, 98. So I actually had my birthday. I remember, because it was the 12th of July. I checked in, and then the 13th, for my birthday, they gave me Firewatch.
Nice. That's
It's
a good welcoming gift.
It is. Just you probably stay up all night anyway, right? So whatever.
Yeah, Firewatch. What a ridiculous.
I know. Get used to not sleeping. It's great. And drinking water, that's for wimps.
Yeah. So you go in. We're talking 98. So we're still at a point in our lives and in the military where we're kind of at a lull, in between what kicked off 2001 for the next 20 years, but we're at a little bit of a lull there.
Post Grenada still, or post Desert Storm, Desert Shield.
Desert Storm, Desert Shield. Yeah. So you go infantry, but for another 3 years there's not really that much going on. There's training and everything.
Training
with the Marines. Are you getting what you went in for? Because you saw that guy, that intensity, that you knew what that was about.
Yeah.
But there's not really an end game of it yet.
No, it was just the being there, and then as you're there, it's the camaraderie, it's the history, it's whatever it is you're going to make it. Yeah, there's the bitterness and the dark humor and everything that comes with with being there, but it was just one of those things where it's just, we're still sharpening the sword, right? I mean, yeah, we're going to this LZ and we're digging foxholes and learning about this, and make sure you got your grenade sump and always improve the foxhole, and sitting there waiting 5 hours for motor T before kicking off, and ammo problems and this, that, and the other, whatever. But and then the infantry, man, I remember running out of targets at a fire and movement range when we were at Lejeune, and we actually went to Party City out there off of Western, I believe it was, and we bought a whole bunch of balloons and inflated them because they're the size of a head, and we were nailing them to trees, so we had something to shoot at. But that was just the area we were in, man. But no, I was loving every second of it, man.
Anything that you wish in that beginning part of your military career that you would have done differently, or maybe do that you didn't do?
Nah. I mean, I did what I was supposed to do.
Right.
And I was happy about it. Met the right people. Got into a good platoon, great company. My platoon sergeant was fantastic. I couldn't ask for anything better.
Why do you think it is that Marines are so uh, excited about being Marines? Because even you talking about this right now, you can see after all these years that excitement is still there when you talk about it.
When they say the change is forever, they're not lying. It's from day one, man. It's just, I hate to say pride because pride is not good. It really isn't. But I like your self-worth term. It gives you self-worth and it gives you something to believe in because they beat that rich history, which the Marines have got a phenomenal history for what they've done for being expeditionary units and the fighting force and the first to fight and everything that goes behind it. It's just, man, it's red, white, and blue. It's just like, this is America, this is it. And they just, from day one, they're phenomenal. I say beating it because, the beatings will continue until morale improves. Right. But they literally beat it into you and it becomes a part of your identity and you'll never lose it ever. Even the guys that, get the FTC tattoos and all this other stuff. It doesn't matter, dude. It's in them. It's in them. It's in them. It's good stuff.
I'm glad you brought up tattoos. I'm going to bring up a little different one. I work with a guy that is so proud of his service that he has 0311 tattooed on his shoulders from shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
And, I work with a lot of other guys and every Marine that I work with, they have some form of tattoo to show that they were Marines. It doesn't, I was in the Army and you see some Army tattoos and stuff like that, but I think every Marine I've ever run across either has a U.S.M.C on them. They have something that brings them back to that just that level of they're so proud that they were that in that part of their life.
No, absolutely. I mean, I've got U.S.M.C across my stomach because I was a Pantera fan growing up, and Phil Anselmo had Unscarred tattooed there, so I put U.S.M.C there because I wanted to put it in a different place. But yeah, you see 0311 on the back here. But I mean, I've also got the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor here with locate, close with, and destroy, right? And then off the top, the old quote, "Do not go gentle," So, but yeah, it's a thing, man.
Well, that's interesting. Pantera.
Yeah.
Favorite Pantera song?
Oh man, Mouth for War, hands down.
Okay.
And then followed up by Primal Concrete Sledge.
Wow, you're digging deep.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. The greatest album ever made was Vulgar Display of Power. I will. Everybody says, like, at least from that era, that it was Far Beyond Driven, but that was because it hit the chart toppers. But dude, they found themselves in Mouth for War, and when they kicked off, because it's funny too, because Primal Concrete Sledge was off of their first studio hit, but that was if you listen to Dime and Vinny talk about it, that song was the first song that they actually made for the Vulgar Display of Power album, but that was the kickstart into the next one, about the next level of heavy that they were going to go.
So what do you think happened with the Great Southern Trendkill?
Look, man, they were just the same thing that happened with Reinventing the Steel, right? Is that all they were trying to do was find that next genre of heavy. Like, how do you top Far Beyond Driven? Right. How do you, that was it. I mean, there's still some bangers on Great Southern Trendkill. But I don't know, man. It was just, they were trying to find their way. That Suicide Note 1 was interesting, which I get where they were headed. I guess that was coming off of the Planet Caravan cover that they did, but going into Suicide Part 2, it just starts hitting hard, So they were just trying to find the next level of heavy. That's all they ever talked about. So,
how important was music during your Marine career?
Music was more important to me in my high school days and junior high. Growing up, I kind of went the opposite way of Jesus, and oddly enough, that's where you found comfort, was in that, because it's the only thing that scared people, because I wanted to scare and keep everybody away from me. But music and movies, it's huge in the military, man. Movies especially.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never lost that power groove sense of, that trying to fire me up. As far as gone now into my faith, man, it's just, I don't know if it's the enemy tugging at me or whatever, but it's just the melody, Dime on the guitar. Like it just fires me up, man. I mean, it's just like certain things, you know, my kids, my oldest is always like, Dad, I want to go skydiving with you. I'm like, cool, but we got one tune we got to hear before it. I said, because it's the same thing. Every time I jump out of an airplane, listen to the same song. And he goes, well, what's that? I was like, Kickstart My Heart by freaking Motley Crue. That is the skydiving song of all skydiving songs, you know? So anyway, yeah, but yeah, I mean, music, absolutely, music is good, man. It's big.
Well, and you know, talking about that, I had Randall Parks on here, and
Nice.
he was talking about that, listening to Slipknot going across the desert, you know, and he had specific songs that he liked too. And I've noticed, I always, you know, whenever I post the shows on social media, I always ask the guy, what song do you want me to add to your social media post? And I get their favorite songs, and you see like crazy differences in what people thought or what people use to get motivated. And I've even had guys like, you know, there's not really, I just went in my head and got motivated and stuff. There's not that kind of stuff. So
you have to.
Yeah. So let's see. So we're moving 98. So as we get up to 2001, what are you doing?
So I'm finishing up school and getting ready to go and do some more training, man. I was deployed actually. 2001 kicked off. I didn't go actually right overseas. I ended up it was like 2002, I think, was the actual invasion. But I went to Camp Lejeune. I wanted to go to Camp Lejeune to go on the MEU, because the MEU that's just what you do. But the fourth MEB.
Wait, I got to ask you a question. You wanted to go on a MEU?
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever heard someone say they wanted to go on a MEU.
What else are you going to do? Go on a UDP? Come on, man. Like, because that was I wanted to go to a med cruise, man. That was like, that was the thing. It was, I mean, there wasn't a combat. I want to go to a med cruise. But 4th Marine Expeditionary Brigade anti-terrorism stood up, and my battalion 3-8 was the one that got attached to that. And because the rotations got messed up, we ended up doing a UDP as a Lejeune, because that was traditionally for Hawaii and California Marines, right? Because that was their AO. But when combat happens, man, all kinds of crazy stuff. Break up the MEU, it's crazy. You know, dogs and cats living together, crazy.
Nice movie quote,
right? You got that? So I love it. Military guys, dude, it's a thing. You got to live by movie quotes. But yeah, no, we ended up at a UDP, and we got the Philippine operation, and we got a Korea op. And when the invasion kicked off, we were in Korea, and we were there to actually, I guess, stop or at least be a big road bump if North Korea invaded South Korea, because we were right there at the DMZ at Warrior Base when that kicked off. And we were listening on AFN to all of our buddies, you know, getting in fights and whatnot. And that's when, you know, lists started coming out, and, you know, we started noticing that some buddies were getting killed. And I don't know if that's when the reality hit of this in the game, but it was a big hit to a lot of us. And then when we got back, that's when things started, you know, kickstarting a little bit. And that's when we were on Alpha increment, which means that we were supposed to be deployable anywhere in the world, have the whole battalion there within 3 days, I believe, with the first troops on the ground in 24 hours. And that's when Haiti kicked off, right? That was early 04. And we did that. And then 3 months later, turned around and went to Fallujah.
When you go to Haiti,
yeah,
can you describe it? We've talked about sights, sounds, smells. When you get to Haiti, let's talk about that.
Oh God. The thing I remember most is the smell. Dude, I've been all over this planet. I've seen some gnarly stuff, but that smell in Port-au-Prince is unlike anything anywhere. I'll never forget that, man. The feel, just hot, sweating yourself to sleep. You know, every single night you'd see pools of sweat. Depending on where we were at, it was either in a cot or, you know, on the ground, you know, on an isomat, and just pools of sweat. It was nasty. It was dirty. We didn't shower for, I think, the first month and a half that we were there. Our camis turned black, and I'm pretty sure grew their own personality. Yeah, man. The smell, the feel, like going past the port, they were burning like bodies and stuff, and it just the soot that was hitting us was actually like human skin. But it reminded me of going through like Stalingrad, the stories you hear. But it was nasty, dude. No, just absolutely no care for human. Well, not everybody, but I mean, you drive down a street and you see bodies everywhere, and nobody cares, or they're thrown in haphazardly in a big pile of trash and garbage. Um, that was a wake up call to third world countries for sure.
In all of your travels, you think you ever saw a place not necessarily based around combat, but a worst place ever?
Man, I've been to Africa, jungles of PI, all over Korea, the back holes of freaking Japan, all over Iraq, Afghanistan. No, Haiti was the worst, man. Environmentally, people were skinny, the pigs were fat because they were eating the dead bodies. Like it was, that was the nastiest place, man.
You think you can describe the smell? I think it's always interesting when people describe the smell.
Movie quotes, man.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Throw it out there.
It was, I'm killing myself, dude. Let's see if I got the, do you know that smell when you're going up and down on an apartment and you smell everybody else's cooking and all of that blended together? That plus crap.
Yeah.
So the fat bastard from Austin Powers. So every worst smell it's like all of the worst smells that you can think of in your head. Think about that and just add heat to it. It's just like if you could smell heat, that plus like socks, a dumpster fire, like it's every bad smell you can think of with heat added.
All I think about is the Anchorman quotes that you could have used for.
Oh yeah. I smell like pure gasoline. Yeah. That's it.
Does it make it hard to eat, to just do anything in life when it's that bad? Because it's 24 hours a day. There's never an escape from it.
Dude, and you know what stunk too, bro, is that we were eating MREs the whole time.
Oof.
Like the whole time. They gave us one hot meal a day, I think starting, it was right that month, the first time we got a shower, month and a half. And then we washed our clothes in diesel. So that was cool. It's not permethrin, right? So yeah, we were so hungry. I lost 29 pounds that deployment.
And how long were you there?
I think 5 months, right at 5 months, because it's the only, it was a lot of firsts happened that deployment. So we did a combat landing. That was the first combat landing I've ever been on. It first time I ever got shot at an LZ. But it was the only time where our return home was not time dependent. It was mission dependent. We didn't go home until we accomplished the mission. And the mission, we were given 7 baseball cards, I believe. And it wasn't, take out all of them and you come home. No, it was worse. We had to replace the president and then replace all 12 district chiefs of police within Port-au-Prince before, and then have it, have the UN, it would be safe enough for them to bring their blue helmet guys in to do humanitarian service type stuff with a little protective, faction from whatever country that they were going to go to. I think it was Brazilian was the first guys that came in after us. But yeah, it was wild, man. And we did it in 5 months. So
that's pretty fast. That's moving pretty fast through that. That's what, 19 people you're looking for? You said 7 cards or 5 cards?
It was 7 cards
plus the 12. Right?
Yeah, and then the 12 district chiefs of police, and then a new president.
So yeah, that's short math, 20. That's a lot in 5 months.
Yeah, we got all of the baseball cards except one, and he got killed 2 weeks after we left, I believe.
Oh well, it did chlorine in the gene pool. It worked itself out.
It did. I mean, maybe we got the right people in the right positions. I don't know how, because it was so short. But I mean, the whole trigger for us to go down there, whether it was John Baptiste Aristide was the president at the time. Once he fled, that was a trigger for us to go in. And I mean, it was literally a leaderless,
which creates a vacuum.
The big time, huge. And I mean, our head shed was at the presidential palace. I mean, initially, obviously, it was secure the airfield, but it moved to a cigarette factory and then to the presidential palace.
That's nice. At the cigarette factory, there's a lot of smoke.
Dude, we stayed for a good, so that's where I stayed the rest of the time, was in that cigarette factory. And the floor was nothing but rat poison.
Oh, nice.
Where we were staying. And it was just like a sea of cots. It was nasty, dude. But you know what, though? It was a lot better than some other people. The poor guys down at India Company had to go stay at the port. They were staying in 20-foot containers down there, dude. Ooh. It was nasty down there.
So you leave there, a couple months later, you're in Fallujah. So yep. You're 05, we're talking Fallujah. Yep. How bad is it getting in Fallujah at 05?
So we showed up, and the invasion was advanced party. So the invasion was just finishing up. And we were talking with the guys from 1-8 about how things were going. And we started doing our right seat, left seat rides and things like that. And then after that, it was then preparing to do the sweep teams to the city, and then getting ready for the first Democratic elections. So tensions were still a little bit high.
What do you remember? Because you're coming from Haiti, you're seeing what a hellhole that place is. When you come there, same except different?
It was a good warm up. Same, just, no, man, I guess same but different. We didn't have to deal with IEDs in Haiti at all. That wasn't a thing. I said Haiti is a good warm up for Iraq. Going through shanties and doing that and having to deal with the filth obviously takes things to a different level. Something we didn't have to deal with too much in Iraq. It was still dirty, but nothing compared to that. And the digs were way better. Camp Fallujah was insane. We always thought it was hilarious too, because when we rolled in at Tent City, right, they're all striped, like blue and white stripes. So I'm like, this is a circus. This is great. We're in the big top, boys. And then we got like artillery, the incoming fire, like the first night, and it was interesting. But yeah, it was a lot different. Having to win hearts and minds. We had to understand that a little bit more. We weren't living kind of with the people too much, but we had a lot more interaction with the folks, trying to understand Terps. And I mean, we had our Terps in Haiti and everything like that. And that's how we, got the people put in the positions that they were supposed to be in. But Iraq, it was a whole other story, like having, playing soccer with the kids and kind of really try to understand. We started to understand the culture a lot more.
Okay. So let me ask you, because almost every person has a different answer to this.
Sure.
How do you believe in hearts and minds, or what's your thoughts on hearts and minds? Because it's a very tender subject, because you feel one way or the other about it. People think it's either horse shit or they completely believe in it. I don't know that there's a lot of middle ground.
I think perspective again plays into it. Of course, you're getting fed the line, no greater friend, no worse enemy at the time. And it was be courteous, be kind, but have a plan to kill everybody you meet. So it was, I think that line, for whatever you want to think of it, that line kind of at least stuck with me the best. Is there's no reason not to be nice to people that aren't actively obviously trying to kill you, but you have to treat them like it was, because the minute you let your guard down, that's when somebody clacks himself off. So you have to keep your guard up the entire time, even if you're with a so-called friendly environment, because you don't know if those people are going to go talk to the bad guys. So hearts and minds in the fact that I'm going to help another human being in need. Sure. 100%. I'm happy to help out anybody that's in need. I don't care what side of the fence you're on. If you're a person that's hurting, let's either one, talk about it if you can, or two, if I can get you blankets or food or something like that to make your life a little bit better, dude, I'm in. Game on. Let's do it. Again, where's my example? My example's in Jesus. That's it. And that's what I'm supposed to go do. So having that perspective helps kind of drive it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Do you ever remember a time that thinking where be nice to everyone, that it did turn bad on you?
Yes, in the fact, God, it was IED training, man. We really were there at a very interesting time of seeing the evolution of IEDs. When we showed up, and when everything that we were getting taught and told was about the 105 or 155 rounds wrapped up in bags and or burlap sacks or animal carcasses, and you'll see wires sticking out of them, or they're in a weird misplaced area, right? But we saw it go from that to them burying them to them putting them in already exploded IED holes with nothing there. No, you couldn't just tell. You just drive by and boom, it goes off. We saw them get put in the backs. That's when we started using them in the backs of cars, spray painting the back of the windows, and then the way that we could tell, obviously, is the suspension went down. Efficacy went up too, and this is where the trust came in, because we were with the 2nd Muthana Battalion, was the crew that was with us. The more our guys taught them about IEDs, the higher efficacy rates went up. That's how we knew that they were talking. So we kind of had to be careful about who we're training, especially to shoot also, right? Because I mean, it could be a point to where if you're in a gunfight or something like that, you walk straight at somebody, you never get hit, unless they've got like a PKM or something like that. But or stray rounds or whatever. But it's just over time you see them start dialing things in, and they're not doing that on their own, but it's because they're training with us.
Right. And that brings up a good point, is that you're training these people to make their lives better. Right. And they're taking that information and making your life worse.
Correct.
It's very hard to gain that trust back. And when you look around and everyone in a war zone, would you agree, seems kind of, I don't want to say the same, but you don't know necessarily who is who. It makes it very hard to trust anyone or to give information out, which in the end makes it hard for relationships to happen and for trust to build there. So you kind of get in an OODA loop with it.
No, big time. Absolutely. And it's one of those things too, where they know how long you're going to be here. And you think that the one thing I can say about that culture, they're really good at waiting. And all they do is just wait you out for the next round to show up. And they know they even knew when turnovers were happening, right? Because TTPs would change, tactics, techniques, and procedures would change. And they'd know it. And of course, if you're on the spec ops side, depend on beard length, but I mean the looks of the vehicle too, right? Because you swap over to Afghanistan, I'm not there yet, but it's you have the vehicles with all the stuff on the sides, all the anti-RPG stuff and everything like that. And then you have these slicked out vehicles, and they knew those are the soft guys, and those are the guys they didn't mess with, or at least mess with less, or they sent mercs in to go and do the thing.
You remember we talked about the worst thing in Haiti. Do you remember the worst thing about Fallujah?
I think it was, man, I think you hit it. It was the trust piece of understanding that you can't trust anyone in that environment. You want to, but you can't. But it's just that complete violation of trust and having that realization of it's that, or it's literally life or death. And complacency. Oh God, I'll never forget our master sergeant. He took a body bag and spray painted in red, "Complacency kills," and he hung it on the little battalion head, checkpoint, to remind us every time we go out the door in a vehicle, we see that first, and complacency killing. That was a big one.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. Do you remember the best part of Fallujah?
Leaving. I think the bonds between the guys, plain and simple, man. And I think that's in any war zone. You kind of solidify stuff, and solidify some friendships that last forever. I mean, I was on a podcast with one of my old machine gunners, man, and he's a pastor now. He's such a great guy, Nolan Ruby. Love that guy. But I mean, he was one of the most ruthless guys out there in Iraq, man. He was a good machine gunner for a reason. But it's just forming those lifelong bonds, man. That's the best part, I think, of any war zone.
So how long are you there?
That was a normal rotation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's next after you leave Fallujah? Where do you head to?
So I head to School of Infantry East.
Okay. And when you're there, you've been running in the red for about 2 years now. I would say about 2 years you've been running in the red.
Three, yeah.
Three, yeah, consistently.
Yeah.
You go to the School of Infantry and you're going to have to dial that back down.
Yeah.
Easy transition, hard transition. And
Different.
how did you do it?
It was one of those things where I'd learned to sniff out an environment before I opened my mouth at that time. And I was with the tactics element within the infantry training battalion. And it was one of those things, just like with going to a new unit. And I mean, yes, you're the new guy, but at the same time, the butt sniffing still occurs, right? To find out who's who and what's what. And some of the other instructors that were there, they had been through some of the similar places, and we immediately kind of, okay, this is our crew. And then they kind of helped the transition a little bit. And then, hey, these are the rules when you're talking to the guys, and these are the things you can and can't do, this, that, and the other. And it became more of a mentoring thing with the students and telling them these are the things that you seriously need to consider. And that was it. It was literally sitting down and almost having a dad talk with the kids, and it worked out okay, man. But that 2 years I spent training for buds, man. Cause it was time to move on. And it took the 2 years that I was there from, in 05 to 07. That was training, and I was very, very fortunate to have a battalion commander and a company commander there that supported me. So
that's an important thing. But we go back to that thing that we've talked about this whole conversation. There's people in place that support you fully.
Yeah, big time.
What rank are you at this time?
At that moment, I believe I was a kind of a senior first lieutenant.
Do you think that it changed how you trained them? Because you said it became more of like a dad session, mentoring session, where you sat down because of everything that was going on in the world. Did it feel different to you than before?
As far as what? Talking to people, or just being in the world?
How to get the point across?
No. I've always been a very blunt person. I say always. I grew to be a very blunt person because I always share when I'm, talking to people and giving speeches, and that I used to be that kid in school with the, reading the paper, and they're like, do the report and then come and do the oral presentation. And I would be sitting there jackhammering with a piece of paper, just sweating buckets. Just get me the heck off of here. I don't want to talk in front of people, which is the funny part about now. I love sitting there talking in front of people. But with the Marines came that blunt mentality, and it was tell it like it is and don't care about what people thought. So in the world, you're an insensitive jackwagon, but in the military, you knew there was no pulling punches and everybody knew where they stood.
Well, and I guess to go a little more into that question, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, because of the things that you had seen, it was more of there was a realness to it. There was an actual physicality to it that you could touch, that you had smelled, touched, been a part of, seen. Right. So it gives you a different perspective when you're talking about it. You're not just teaching, this is what it says in the book. This is what it says to do in theory. Yep. This is how you survive in real life.
Yeah, that's it. And that street credit alone gets your foot in the door with that type of a conversation. But then what comes next and how you portray it and the things that you've seen and how you relate it to what it is that they're doing, that's where the gold is. And being able to talk about it from a passionate sense and a reality sense and giving a fresh sense of reality is what those kids need to hear. Now, the entitlement thing was not a thing back then. This would have been, 2005 to 2007. And it just, there was no entitlement. It was just kids coming in, learning and wanting to do better. There was a couple of them that were like, I remember there was one kid on a grenade range became a conscientious objector, but whatever. You see weird things with I can't call them recruits, but with the new folks, the shower shoes, and it's just again how you portray it and how they're going to take it. But like I said, street credit plays big in it, man.
When do you think, since you bring it up, when do you think that entitlement thing changed?
The first time I ever saw it, I think was probably, God, was it a palpable moment? Entitlement. Because it wasn't when we were at Buds, definitely not. It wasn't my first platoon in the teams. God, mid 2000 teens, I guess. 2024 13 14ish maybe.
Okay.
Around in there is when it really started poking its head out, and we're like, what? No, go over there. you know, or drop, meet me on the beach,
Right.
But I remember in the Marine Corps, it was called going over the hill, right? It's where rank would come off and you needed to go settle something. You go on the tree line, settle it, whatever happens, happens. And in the teams, it was going over the berm. It was same thing, same mentality. Guys need to go work stuff out. That was it. Or if new guy needed to get tuned up, he got tuned up. Nobody said anything. It didn't matter. It was a way of policing each other up. And then the big hazing thing started coming in, right? And then EMI, the extra military instruction, the punishment has to fit the crime, and actually spawned a lot of creativity in that part. But it just, things changed. I'm like I said, it softened us. It just gave a different mentality, and it gave the older guys a challenge that probably shouldn't need to be there. Something extra to deal with.
Let me ask you a question about bullies.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
you brought up the hazing, you brought up
Yeah.
how you dealt with things going, over the hill or over the berm, however you want to
Sure.
say it.
Absolutely.
With your childhood and the level of bullying you experienced,
Mm-hmm.
you believe bullies are a necessary evil?
I think about that question still to this day. And as much as however people are going to view it, I think it is. Because again, it makes people tough, and it makes you find out who you are. Do I agree with bullying? Absolutely not. I think the bullies are the ones that need to get identified and they need to get help. But it's like it forces a crossroad that's going to happen some way or the other, anyways, in an individual's life. How is it that you're going to deal with it? So, is it necessary? You can become great out of it, right?
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to ask you that, because you're a example of that.
I don't know about all that, but I try my best,
Well, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit there because if you look back of what you came through, there wasn't a place you went, school, choir, church,
Yeah.
the pool, without it. And yes, that's overkill. That's definitely going to one extreme, but look at how it turned out.
Yeah. But I made that choice. Some people don't, and they end up ending it all, right? I don't know. It's just it's interesting too, because I know I've done posts on LinkedIn or whatever, thanking them. I don't know where they're at, but thanks, because it made me tough. It helped make me tough, and it helped form the thing that can overcome anything, or thinks they can, and doesn't know any limits. So, for what it's worth, yeah. But I hate bullies, and I like protecting people from it.
You think they were ever, when you post those thank yous, like Happy Gilmore, where the guy's sitting there with the lipstick and crossing the names out on a list?
It's a different thing, because I welcome those people. I'm like, all right, man. But if it is cool, I hope and pray that those people seek or sought
Right.
resolution for whatever it was, because it made me realize that they're hurting too. At first, man, I tell you, for years and years and years, it was me versus them.
Of course.
But again, it's one of those things. The farther I dove into the word and started to understand that, about loving everybody and understanding what true, like, agape love is, right? That they are troubled, and to think about where it is that they came from that made them where they're at. And then I go back to Mr. Miyagi, right? There are no bad students, only bad teachers. So that can be translated into parenting also. If you have that horrible environment, maybe a single parent household, or you're in a gang area, or you're in an area where there's turmoil, some people go the other direction, man.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about you going into SEAL training, because this is when your story starts getting super crazy. Because I really feel like you're trying to prove something here. And let me explain why I think you're trying to prove something so much more than any other part of your story. Is because you go through Hell Week with a broken pelvis, but that's not the first time that you had a broken pelvis. You've had left and right side. You get medical rolled the first side you do it.
Yeah.
You're going when your body is literally telling you you can't go anymore. Why was it so important to push yourself so hard this time? Because like I said, in any other time of your, well, not in any other time of your story, but the main part of your story,
yeah,
it seems like you just wouldn't give up just to not give up.
I mean, you really find out what you're made of when you're put into the hottest fires. And it's one of those things of, well, is it lip service or are you really going to be tough? And I could not go home a failure. I couldn't because for some reason, that thing was kicking in my head of like, it's going to get held over your head at some way, shape, or form. And instead of that happening, and plus I didn't want to let the twins down. And I didn't want Billy, I didn't want to let Soupbone down either. Right. Cause they were in my head and they were calling me, when I was at Bud's.
But look at how you just answered that. You said, I didn't want it held over my head. And then when you talk about Soupbone and the twins, you say, I didn't want to let them down. For your family, you said, I didn't want it held over my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
For these guys, you said, that's a pretty big statement to make.
Fair. It was the truth though. That was my thinking. It was no matter what, even if going in, because I remember talking to the devil doc prior to going in, because he signed the medical waiver. He knew my pelvis was broken. And I asked the guy, I said, hey man, what's the worst that could happen? He goes, well, if you hit wrong on it, because it was a pubic rami bone, right? It was in half. And I could feel the bone doing this with every movement.
That's nice.
Underneath. Yeah, it's great. So whenever you lunge, especially with a boat on your head, that bone does this. So it could go up and sever the bundle of, veins and arteries and stuff. And I could have bled out internally and died. That was the worst that could have happened. I said, what's the best that could happen? And most likely, he goes, you're going to go through pain. And then like Rocky IV came into my head, are
you talking about training in the mountains and the snow?
About Apollo's old guy said, you're going to have to go through hell to get through this, to fight Drago, and
let's not forget that he died too. Apollo died fighting.
Yeah, but he was talking, but true. That's right. But he went through it prideful.
Right.
Completely underestimated his enemy. Whereas the trainer now kind of learned, and now he's portraying into Rocky. Right. So, but yeah, it was just, I was like, all right, well, if that's going through pain, then I'll take pain. And med checks, we started on Sunday, right when the sun went down, whatever time of day that was in California in October. But, it was Sunday, and then we didn't get med checks until Tuesday. And that's when they could start giving me Toradol shots, which is funny because that only lasts 12 hours. So you didn't feel half the day, you felt half the day. And the worst part of the day, the night crew, that's when I felt it all. So it was actually kind of funny. But I had this thing of like, even if it breaks me, even if something happens catastrophically during Hell Week, I am going to go until I die to get through Hell Week, because that way I said it. And I remember calling my wife afterwards. The only thing I said to her was, I did it. Nobody can ever hold this over me, and nobody can take this away from me. That was it. Nobody can take this away from me. And that was hell. And then I remember I went and I put never had a brown t-shirt feel so warm in all my life. Put that brown t-shirt on, and then pounded a Gatorade, ate a whole pizza, and then took an 18-hour nap.
How'd your pelvis feel when you woke up?
Oh my God, it hurt so bad. Holy cow, dude. I mean, it was like somebody was hitting me in the junk with a sledgehammer, just over and over and over. It was gnarly. But I made it, and they gave me the 2-class roll, and I was able to go through rehab, heal back up, and then join in after Hell Week with my class that I ended up graduating with.
When you get through it all,
Yeah.
not just Hell Week, we know that, but when you get through all of it, when you pin your trident,
Yep.
do you feel what you thought you would feel like? And let me kind of describe that a little more. I've had guys tell me that when they pinned it on, they didn't feel any different. They thought that they were going to feel like this change in them, and they were like, okay, I'm still the same guy. Now I have this. Did you feel any different?
I think I'd already had a watershed moment like that before, and that was when I got handed my Eagle Globe and Anchor. But it was a sense of accomplishment is the feeling that I got, because it was just another micro goal in life, right? Of I'd spent so long and worked so hard and given so much for that little freaking piece of metal that they were going to put on my chest, and I finally got it. And I remember going, cool, what's next? That was it. It was that was it. And it's interesting. I talked to a crew, I think it was last week or whatever, that I'm working on doing biometric stuff with people to help with their minds and help veterans for PTSD, TBI. But the guy did this AI retinal scan and facial scan of me and everything. And he kind of pretty much called exactly how I do things, but it's very interesting, and it's cool technology, man, that's coming out that's going to help a ton of people. But yeah, he looked at me, and he'd never met me. He didn't know what my past was. He didn't know anything about me. All the guy gave him was, these are his pictures. Do a read on him. And he said that you are the type of individual that enjoys the hunt and not the prize. And he hit nail on the head. He goes, high performing individuals are usually like that. They don't care. Yes, they know, and they're going towards the prize, but the prize isn't what they love. It's the hunt.
Yeah. Well, and would you feel like you're never, I guess the word would be, do you ever feel fulfilled? And that can mean a lot of different things.
It can.
I guess the way I'm asking is, you go, yeah, this is cool. What's the next thing? Do you think it'll be that way your whole life? Because when you think that way, I think you get to a point where there's fewer things left to do. And I worry at the end where you're like, well, there's nothing to do.
Well, see, here's the thing is I've chosen a sport that will always be there.
Well, and you said into your 90s and 100, you would still like to set records.
Set world records. That's what I told him. My coach asked me what my goals are. I've never had a coach in my life. And he asked me what my goals are. I said world records in my 90s and 100s. He goes, okay.
So you can base the next question on, let's say you can't do those things. Let's say when you get to your 90s, your 100s, it's not possible for whatever reason, you know? Do you feel unfulfilled then because you didn't reach that point?
No, I'll just find something else.
Okay.
There's always going to be. That's the thing, man, to me, having a no limits mindset is there aren't any. And honestly, to me, that's freedom. And that's, and the fulfillment is that it comes in the chase, because I know when I decide to do something, I'm going to go all in.
Right.
Even if it's seeing my business to the end. I don't know what the end state looks like. I just know that I'm going to go as hard as I can, try to help as many people out as I can, provide for my family, and then enjoy the ride, man. And it's enjoying it, because if you think destination and all of that stuff, it's just like you always are looking at the future and you're not paying attention to what's going on right now. So to me, the fulfillment is almost daily. And to me, it's the grind, it's the chase, it's the hunt. How far did I get closer to where it is that I want to be or need to be? What positive effects have I had on an individual or a group of people when I speak to them, that I can say, yep, I did the right thing and I went full send. And it turned into it's interesting. You talk about the military quotes and everything like that. Earn your trident every day, right? So it's like, I earned my trident today. That was it. That was it. And its thing is, and it even says in the Bible, man, is that you're supposed to build up your storehouse in heaven. And every day is the ability to build that storehouse up. Things and stuff on this planet don't matter, but people and souls do. So there's your storehouse. And That's never going to end. So even if I can't, for whatever reason, powerlift, and the whole reason I'm doing that too, well, there's a couple of reasons. One, I love doing it, but at the same time, it's showing people that you shouldn't have limits, regardless of how old you get. Right? And if you can do this, why not do it? And if nobody else has done it, let's blaze a trail.
So let's stay on that topic of proving yourself. You had a lot of doctors tell you, you'll never do this, you'll never do that again.
Yeah.
And you went from 5 pounds to 500 pounds. We'll, of course, put those pictures up. But then you sent a video to that doctor to say, look at what someone with the right mindset. I'm butchering your quote to him, but, you know, you told him, look what someone that really wants to do something can do. Whenever you're hearing that, is it about proving them wrong, or is it about proving something to yourself?
You know, I don't have anything to prove to myself. I don't need to, right? The only thing that matters to me is proving myself before God. He put me on this planet to do something. And everybody gets put in different areas of specialty, wherever they're a subject matter expert with the gifts that they've been given, to be able to work towards the glory of the kingdom. And I'm going to do that. And if it's cruising into using my past of overcoming things and using that as a pillar of strength, then that's what I'm going to do. And that's it. No, I absolutely don't have anything to prove to me. I got to prove to him that I'm worthy, you know, because I don't want to be that guy that knocks on the door and he looks at me and says, I never knew you. To keep establishing a relationship with him, to get closer and closer. And if I fall off, you know, and you know, go towards the world, that I turn and go right back towards him and glorify him in everything that happens, man. But it's just like being able to go, look what God can do, man. If he can do it to a freaking schmuck like me, what can he do with you?
Right.
All you got to do is just meet him halfway and keep going.
So going into your career as a SEAL, then going into special operations, you don't have anything to prove to yourself. Yeah. How is it different? Because once again, I feel it's a weird way that you describe it to me, that my brain, it's so hard to process it. When you talk about getting your trident and getting your globe and anchor, and you say how much pride there was, and then with the trident, it was cool, but it was, let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
You don't have anything to prove to yourself. So what sets the being a SEAL differently? Because you did that for a long time too.
Yeah, it was a little over 17 years.
Yeah.
In the teams, man. Getting on top and staying on top. I mean, it was, I always told myself that I'd get out when I stopped having fun and stopped enjoying the job, but being around the guys, that's what kept me in. And it was a sense of duty and loyalty to those guys, and to be able to share everything that I've been through to make them better for the next conflict that's going to be coming, because something always happens, right? It's going to happen. War is inevitable. But to get them ready as best they possibly can, to make sure that they move away from this entitled mindset, to make sure that they're earning their trident every day, and to make sure that they're learning and reading history, not just what we did, but what happened before that, to know where it is that they're going to be going. Because I told them all the time, I said, it's war of the nerds right now. You know, everything's technology. But what happens when the lights go out? They type in the world, was it from Escape from LA? Type in the world code and everything shuts down. So like what happens when that goes down?
By far worse than Escape from New York.
It's so much worse. So the surf scene, oh my word, so bad. But it's Snake Plissken, so come on.
Side note, did you know that he really made all those basketball shots? That was a real thing.
How crazy is that?
Yeah.
I could not believe it. No, Kurt Russell literally would not let them do it until he actually made the shots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unreal. Love it.
Yeah. So when you go there and you're in a different environment than being Marines, you're a scalpel now, where before you were a sledgehammer. Right. It's completely different. Where's the first place you go in combat as a SEAL?
Afghanistan.
Okay. And now, so you had never been to Afghanistan before this one, right? Okay.
Nope. Never have.
So we look at Haiti, Japan, Philippines, Iraq, all of those different places. I think and you tell me if I'm wrong, this is a completely different world.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, first deployment I'd had was in Europe with the teams. And then, but the first, you said combat. So first combat was Afghanistan. But yeah, absolutely new operating environment, 100%. And it was one of those things where I remember walking up the stairs. Two things I remember checking in SEAL Team 10. But one was, I remember one of the LPOs coming by and going, "Hey, you the Marine?" I go, "I was a Marine." And they go, "All right, cool." But and then just walked off. And it's not like I expected a big grand anything, but it was just like, that was an interesting first engagement of more like, well, let's see what you got, dude. You know? And it was having to change mindsets a little bit. I got into pinching buds, but dude, buds in the teams, man, it's different, especially with those senior guys that had already been through some pretty hefty stuff. We had guys in the troop that had been through Iraq and Afghanistan with that troop and been through some pretty freaking gnarly stuff. So it was sitting back and hearing them and trying to learn. And I took some pride hits, man. I did, because it was one of those things, especially going to Afghanistan. In my head, I was like, well, I've been to Iraq. I'm good. But I mean, I'm at a JTAC be like, bro, this ain't the Marines and you're not in Iraq. So you need to like step up your game a little bit. So, I mean, I had these wake-up calls,
Well,
which is
give
good.
me an example of that.
What do you mean?
When he says this isn't Iraq, you're not in the Marines, you better step your game up. What caused that situation to happen?
We were doing turnovers, and I wasn't listening, just plain and simple, because I was just like, I know this, been here, you know. And he was getting that feeling of me brushing him off. And it's like, I wasn't trying to be rude or anything, but it was just like, I'm ready to move to the next thing. And he's like, no, you need to freaking dial it back a little bit, and we start from the beginning, because this is a whole different operating environment, and it's a whole different way of doing it. Because this is when village stability operations had just like kicked off. This was the long deployment, 2011, 2012. So it was kind of like the height of Afghanistan, I guess.
What do you think you took away from him then? This episode brought to you by Max Belts. Guys, are you looking for a perfect accessory to wear every single day for every single scenario? Well, you've come to the right place. We all know that nothing stands up to wear and tear like a good leather belt. If you're looking for the toughest leather belt on earth, then you've come to the right place. Max Belts. They're handcrafted in the USA by veterans who are serious about their craft. And if you're looking for a belt that's tough enough for your active lifestyle and help support those who've given so much to our country, look no further than Max Belts. It's the toughest belt on the planet. It's a perfect solution for casual or dress wear and ideal for utility and firearm carry. It's the highest caliber of American craftsmanship, and it also positively impacts our military charity partners. Once again, Max Belts, you can't go wrong with them. I wear them every day. They're the toughest belt on earth. And you can find all of this and so much more at maxbelts.com.
Humility. I took away a huge learning point. And that's where it really came in of, you have one mouth and two ears for a reason. That's a ratio. Listen twice as much as you talk. And you don't know everything. And the minute you think you do is when lives are going to really be on the line. And your experience is good. Bring what you can from it and apply it. But you have to treat every single environment differently. You have to understand the culture. You have to understand and it's interesting too, because going back to Afghanistan, over again, it's just even the different AOs within Afghanistan is different. It all changes. You have to understand exactly where it is that you're going, everything. It became a huge lesson that I ended up teaching the young kids, right? Know the history, know the culture, know the politics, know the religion, know the fighting, know who's been there before, and then talk to the people that have already been there on your team and make sure that you understand everything you possibly can before stepping a foot in the dirt over there.
Do you think that you heeded that same advice?
After he kicked me in the teeth? Yeah, 100%. I had a huge shift, and I had some of my guys even come up and tell me, they're like, we noticed a change. It's good. So it was a growing point, but you need that. And that was the one thing I loved about the teams, is that they didn't pull any punches, man. even if it's a training in the kill house or whatever, if you suck, they're going to tell you, because they know and they understand that at that level, if you're not cutting the freaking mustard, you need to go do great things elsewhere.
So when you touch down in Afghanistan for this first rotation,
Yep.
We've talked about when you get to Iraq, when you get to Haiti, other than your run in with the JTAC, thoughts, feelings, emotions when you get there.
I remember my in brief with my CO, and everybody was so concerned about collateral damage and civilian casualties. He said, if you have any, and it more so than the mission brief, he goes, if you have any CivCats or CDE, I'm getting you out of country immediately. And I'm going, okay, anything else? And then, like, because I come from the Marine Corps, right? I was like, campaign plan, micro campaign plan, let's do this. Teams weren't so great at micro campaign planning, even though that's what it was that they were doing. You know, I mean, it wasn't their backyard, but we're operating in somebody else's backyard. So,
well, maybe explain to the people that are listening why that was important, why he said he would get you out of the country right then.
Because he couldn't, because it caused a ripple effect. And it was a huge political situation. And if something happened at the district level, it would make it up to the provincial level. It would make it to the presidential level. And the next thing you know, American forces are getting kicked out of certain areas. And people are going to lose careers and just bad things are going to happen. So, and he had already relieved a couple, 3 different people too, for just that very reason. And I was like, all right, I get it. I'll do my best. And I gave him my initial plan. And I even gave it a little code name, and he liked it, and he was go out and execute. And the General Miller at the time, the SOGITF commander, our job was to create white space. So we literally had to go find the bad guys and make the area safe to go find the Taliban.
So village stability operations, a little different than you're doing in Fallujah or Haiti. Really talking about, you don't know who you can trust and who you can't, because you're talking to village elders, you're talking to people in the villages, but in the same sense, when you're talking to them, a lot of them are also talking to family members that are who you're going against, and
absolutely
not necessarily not loyalty to the Americans that are there, but just they're trying to protect themselves and their families by talking because they're scared of what's happening. So can we talk about that kind of mindset with you and how you looked at it differently than your other?
I started to kind of understand an old Army thing, man, is guerrilla operations. I started to understand what that really meant, and what it took to win. And if you want to take somebody over, what do you need? 2 things: fear and money. And we have both. And with that comes power. So it had to be like, we were the new sheriffs in town, and the severity of what we had to do kind of came with that. You hit it, man. The Taliban, we would go to a key leader engagement or go talk to somebody to try to find out about IED facilitation or something like that. And we don't know if they're telling the truth. And then again, we had to trust our terps too, which we had terps that some of our terps end up working with the Taliban, right? So it's like we have an insider threat, which we took care of, no problem. But something I never even thought of how to deal with. I'm like, these people have been vetted, you know. Tell that to the people in the freaking planes that hit the Twin Towers too, right? About stuff getting vetted. So very unfortunate situation about having to trust people and how you see people. And it's like, I'm trying to do the greater good. And again, it's that culture, and they can wait things out, and they know when the next rotation is going to be, they know when the next people are going to show up. And it's just, I had to bring that old Marine Corps mentality in of the, be courteous, be kind, but have a plan to kill everybody you meet, in there. But
do you come in with an iron fist then?
To the Taliban, yes. To the people, no. We had to make the Taliban scare us or be scared of us. And we had to then be scarier than them. And we had to bring the hammer to them, and we did. And it worked, and it brought respect for the people, because they didn't want the Taliban were there. I mean, granted, they, with the family ties, and some of them are linked in, that's a thing. But by and large, they did not want them there. And they knew, especially after talking to us, we knew that they started to trust us. Why? Because they actually started letting us go in the mosques, like letting us go in the mosques, which is huge in that culture, huge, right? And and they would say, hey, this is literally where things are. And it got to the point to where, we were going to come in as Big Daddy Warbucks, pay off a bunch of money, show me where the IEDs are at, and then that's it. Well, could it be feeding them, and then they're, telling their family, and then they know they're going to get this money, and then they plant one on purpose just to get money for the families? Potentially. But regardless, for us, it's taking explosives off the freaking battlefield that could hurt anybody. So, we would come in, they'd say, no, whatever it is that they say, we'd leave 30 minutes later, almost to the dot. Motorcycles would come out of the hills and the Taliban would follow up, and they would throw beatings on the people inside the village trying to find out, what did you tell the Americans? Whether they told them stuff or not, I don't know. But of course, we adjust our tactics to leave stay behinds, right? Force goes one way, leave a stay behind, take care of the Taliban. They stop messing with the people. That earns respect with the people, and it's putting fear in them.
It's definitely two birds, one stone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you remember an operation over there where you thought that this is completely different? And, the Taliban, whoever you want to say over there, you talked about them fighting, but they had been fighting since way before we were over there. They were fighting the Russians. Yep. They have, for thousands of years, they've been fighting over there. Was there an operation where you said, these guys are different fighters than what I've ever experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. First gunfight, actually. It was a readjustment wake up call. Cause I were there. It was 2011. I hadn't fired a shot, in anger since 2005. So it had been a minute. And, I remember we were standing on top of a house in the middle of a village that we had just cleared out. And I heard in the background the report of a belt-fed weapon. And I remember looking over my platoon chief, and I'm like, hey, man, that sounds like machine gun fire, like PKMs, because it was off in the distance. But we were in this big bowl. There's mountain ranges around us, right? And I remember looking over, and there was a tree branch, that was probably about maybe 3 feet from me. And I saw it was the outcropping, and the branch just fell. And then I start seeing these little piffs coming up out, and I go, oh God, they're shooting at us. And it was like, okay, you'll get down, call troops in contact. But it was one of those things where we were pinned down, and we should have seen it coming too, man. It was so crazy, because what they did was, and this was the first time, I think they knew it was a turnover op too. We went to the village, and we did the thing, but they knew that we were going to not succumb, but kind of respect their cultural beliefs. So they had to call a prayer, and everyone gathered into the freaking mosque. Well, now Taliban know where all the villages are. So then they can shoot from multiple directions, which they did, down at us, and know they're not hitting any of their people. And I was just going, oh my word, these guys know what they're doing. Like the tactics were different, using coordinated attacks, but it's like, you're not going against, granted, Al-Qaeda, the fighting was just different, man. To me, they seemed a lot more, because they knew the land so well, they were able to manipulate it. The only way I can describe it is kind of like the Filipinos did. I never seen anybody break jungle faster and better than Filipinos in triple canopy jungle, like where we'd be stuck. They would almost like slice through jungle like butter. Couldn't believe how fast they moved. But it was the same thing. They knew the terrain, they knew the area, they knew exactly where to be to deliver precision, well, as precise as possible, but precision fire, with automatic weapons, with rockets. It seemed so much more. And even though people would say savages and whatever, it seemed we had to think a lot more. We had to be on our toes a heck of a lot more, because they were more creative. There was more things that, the flip phones that they had, we found out that the flip phones, they could see our freaking lasers. So yeah, the cameras on the old school clamshell flip phones, if you open that up and look through it, you can faintly see even the IR headlights on a Humvee, but especially
Really?
the lasers. Yeah. And they were using that to find it. So we had to stop roping targets and stuff. Islid showed up like a daggum lightsaber. Unreal.
Wow.
But little things like that they would figure it out. Because our EOD guy was so dadgum good. He was a senior chief, like 18 years of experience, and the dude was a freaking bomb whisperer. He's awesome. They started individually building explosives specifically targeting him. So they would set an IED, and then they knew, because he would brush stuff away, they knew his techniques, where they would have these little spring-loaded tumblers. So when he just swept by it, that tumbler would do this and then explode. And it was just enough to kill one person. And he found that and was like, whoa. And I go, hey, guess you're doing good work, man. But yeah, it was a whole other level. And from that first gunfight, and then we'd call in birds to come and do gun runs, and then give us along the mountains, and then escort us out of the AO. But it was way different. Plus the fact of the support alone, right? In the Marines, artillery fixed wing, yeah, artillery happened more than fixed wing, and we could go right into the city. But for here, yeah, it was weird having birds almost on call, and then ISR having all the extra stuff that you normally wouldn't have, which is very,
well,
very
because you have a JTAC with you.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I'm the one calling it in, and
right.
Once they check on, they belong to him, and I just say, hey man, this is where we need to go, what we need to do.
Right.
And yeah, but it was just absolutely, the game completely changed.
So I like how you stated you hadn't fired a shot in anger since 2005.
Yeah.
When you pull that trigger the first time,
yeah,
is it like riding a bike? You just ease right back into it?
Oh yeah. Comes right back because the stakes are so high. Do
you remember how you felt? I want to know how you feel inside. Is there a change when you're like, yeah, I'm back in it now?
I feel this. Recoil, baby. That's all you feel. But no, I mean, I'm not a warmonger by all means, but there is an adrenaline rush, and yes, there are smiles that do happen.
Yeah. But the reason I asked, not necessarily warmonger, but if you look at it as just going, this is what you were put on this earth to do. You've talked about it numerous times, saying there was a plan for you, and you're doing it. So you've got to feel like just a euphoric rush go through you that this is what I was put here to do.
Everything became simpler. That, to me, for whatever you want to think about it, that is the easiest life could ever get. Plain and simple.
I've heard a lot of people say that, and they say that they wanted to go on multiple deployments, multiple rotations, because life was so simple. You're not getting kids to softball games or baseball games. You're not worrying about if a bill's paid. You're worried about taking care of you, your people, and getting through each day.
Yeah. And you almost know what's going to happen and know what's coming. And I don't even know. I mean, I guess you could say it, control. It's a sense of control. I mean, yeah.
Which is a strange way to say, because you really don't have control on what's going on, especially in that chaotic.
If you think about it holistically and spiritually, you have zero control.
Right.
Zero. But you have that feeling of it, because it's like you just said, this is my environment. These are my people, and this is the thing I got to do.
How's your mental fitness going through all this?
It's too fast to think about it, man. I remember.
But there are downtimes.
Huh?
There are downtimes.
Fire TV is huge, right? For those that don't know, we burning pallets, and we burn trash and all kinds of other stuff. Burn pits are a thing. You get around the pallet fire, man, and just start yakking, and conversations start coming up, and that's kind of how guys go through stuff and deal with things. And some weird stuff comes up, and some dark stuff comes up, and lot of laughs come up, but always, interestingly, they'll start talking about the day. If we went out or something like that, or the last op, or what's coming next. And then that's when, I guess the floodgates open, and guys can literally talk about anything, and they do. But as far as mental capacity, always checking on the guys. Hey man, you guys doing all right? And you can tell if a guy's lying, or if a guy goes, I'm fine, or whatever. I was less concerned about my guys and more concerned about like the striker grit dudes that were with us doing outer cordon, like when they came in, because they swapped out a couple of times and we got fresh batches of Army cats. And even though they were striker, they were a little bit more specialized. But I mean, first gunfight's a first gunfight. So you go over and talk to their platoon commander and team sergeant and be like, yo, man, you guys good? You had some, young butts and bucks. And I know this butter bar here ain't never seen stuff happen, but
Right.
you guys good? And sometimes they'd check on their guys and sometimes they wouldn't. You'd have to go do it. I'm like, look, man, this isn't my job to check on your people. I'm checking on you, the leadership, to give you the opportunity to be that leader that they need, because they need to see you as that. And it ended up working out pretty good, man.
How's everything back home? Family life, everything with all, because now that you're with the SEALs, you're going to start ramping up really either training, deployment, being away from that family environment. And once again, the reason those questions come to mind is because how you just said, you can all sit around the pallet fire and talk and everyone opens up. It's not as easy when you come back and talk to the people that are quote unquote the most important in your life.
Yeah, no, there's some things you can and some things you can't. And then slowly but surely stories do come out. Sometimes they ask questions, sometimes they don't. Just like with anything, especially when you're gone all the time, is relationships get strained and sometimes even severed. So it's understanding that, looking outside of your own anger and then, or whatever it is that you're feeling, and understanding that they're more important. And sometimes you don't get that until after it's already, I'm not going to say too late, because it's never too late, but it's very, very difficult coming back. I mean, my family, I had my first two kids early on. One when we were in Korea was my oldest, and then my daughter was right after she was born. My wife went into labor when the wheels touched down the airplane when I got back from Fallujah, which was
at least they
I'd
were
already,
touching down coming back.
Facts. No, I got to see it. It was just that was a wild experience in and of itself, man. It's because I'd already been awake for like 3 days, and all I wanted to do was eat. And my wife was awesome. She had a I love Schlotsky, so she had a Schlotsky sandwich there waiting on me. And I was in the shower, and she goes, "Hey, start your watch." And I went, "What?" She goes, "Just start the timer on the watch." And then she does it like the third time, and I start seeing how many, and then like the egg timer goes off, and I go, "Hey, you're not," and she goes, "Get out of the shower." so and then we go to the Lejeune hospital and my daughter's born, but they knew the tempo from the get-go. And we always told the twins and I, one, we said we'd never get married, and two, we said we wouldn't have kids till we were out. None of us ended up working out the whole marriage thing. All three of us got married and had kids, but they weren't in. But both of them got separated early, and mine, too dumb to quit self, just kept going. And it puts a big strain on them. It does. So it's just, okay, where are we at? How do we, and it's just like, take an assessment. Where are we at? How can we make things as good as we possibly can? And let's keep charging.
Do you ever have a problem with, because you've had a lot of injuries and stuff at that time, you'd even had a lot of injuries. Ever have any problems with medication or alcohol, or, trying to get rid of, physical pain, mental pain, whatever? Do you ever run across that? I know you're a big health guy, but
yeah. I always hated pills. I hate the way they make me feel. And I hate not being aware of things. And it's always more bad comes than good, even after like multiple surgeries, like the Oxycontin and the painkillers and all Demerol, all that stuff. It's just, I never had that like addictive thing that said my body needs this, or opioids or anything like that. It was, I need to get this crap out of me as soon as possible and get off of this stuff. I will take the pain over what this crap is doing to me, because it's not helping. The gabapentin and whatnot, just feeling all woozy like a freaking zombie. Even the Ambien too, man. Trying to go to sleep. They would hand that out going overseas, and I even hated that. And it only put me down for like 4 hours anyway. So I'm like, well, this is stupid. I don't need this. Drinking was with the boys. I'd had alcoholism in my family, and that was always kind of a big thing. So I didn't like drink it it was a social thing. That's why I did it at the time. But I'm multiple years not drank, had a sip, man. But it wasn't one of those. It was just what you did with the boys because you're out with the war dogs, and that was it. And should I have said no? Maybe more times than I didn't, but because I wanted to set an example for my kids too, and I didn't like who I became. So, but as far as like saying this was my thing, I need to go seek help or something like that. I never crossed that threshold.
So you've experienced depression,
Yep.
trauma, physical collapse. I mean, you've been through it with the surgeries, with the deployments.
Yep.
Which of those three do you think nearly took you out?
Man, they all did it in different ways. I mean, all of them physically nearly took me out. Mentally taking me off game. Surgery, my shoulder surgery took my mind, I think, the farthest off. Because I'd already come back from my knee surgery, but when I had my shoulder surgery, that one messed with my head pretty good.
How did it mess with your head?
I let those feelings of lack of self-worth hit me a little bit more. I was just so angry because it was a complete pride thing. That I, it was, they said it was wear and tear, but it was a certain situation. I was trying to lift something that I shouldn't have. And then I continued not only training on it, but deploying on it and continued lifting on it. And that just made it worse and worse and worse. And then I finally got the surgery, and it was 3 procedures in one. And then I found out that I've only got so much mobility in one arm that I'll never be able to do anything overhead with that. I say never, at least that's what they said. I'm not there yet, but I've gotten more mobility out of it and tons more than they ever said that I would. But it kind of changed the game a little bit for me mentally. And I remember staring into a 2-pound bag of Sour Patch Kids and I just looking at it going, what am I doing? To me, this was just like a mental absolute drain and low point. I was a bear to be around. I was sitting in a bed and trying to heal, couldn't do much. And I was not pleasant to be around. And I wish that I would have had the fortitude to be better than what I was at the time. But, it just took a lot, man. And then, finally just made it back to the gym. And then once I started going back, I mean, I was wearing like a monster, like size shirt or whatever, because I was just embarrassed. I mean, I looked like a freaking tub of goo. My body just gone to hell. And I let it happen. But it was one of those things where that's where I started understanding what bodybuilding was, because I had limited motion here and all I'd cared about was jacking steel and trying to get strong. But I was doing it in such a horrific way that it was just a matter of time before my body broke down. So it took me to understand things from a better perspective, biology wise, and understanding how the body moves, understanding biomechanics and how to strengthen something and get a little bit more rotation out of it, despite what physical therapy was doing to me, which it was not helping. But to understand how my body works and what's going to make these muscles start firing again, these muscles start firing again. How can I make this be in less pain? Because it was to the point to where I was going to fluoroscopy and getting steroid shots, man. It was at first, it seemed like every 3 weeks, and that's just not healthy. And I was like, all right, I got to wean myself off of it. And then just started going into it. I was like, all right, well, I got to understand that there's 3 different parts to the shoulder. You have to do your rear delt, side delt, front delt. And literally what I learned at that point is that the muscle is a meat shield for the joint. And the more muscle that you had around it, the less pain you were in. And I went, okay, there's something to this. So that's when I started doing the bodybuilding bit and understanding a little bit more about how the human body worked. And then we cruised down the road a little bit more and finding out about anterior and posterior chain, and just diving deeper and deeper into Russian, Bulgarian manuals, and just applying all this stuff to myself and going, all right, this is how we're going to get better. This is how we're going to get better. And it was me getting back in the hunt, right? Because I'd kind of stepped out. I stepped off the highway and I'd stopped, and just bad things happened, man. I quit moving. I quit going. I quit moving forward and started going backwards, and it negatively affected everything. So it was just, I remember I'd said to myself, what am I doing? And then we were off to the races from there.
That way of working out, you said you just were jacking steel, just trying to get as strong as you possibly could. What factor of back in the day do you think was more of a thing? Was when we talked about being good enough for your family and all that kind of stuff? Do you think it was soup bones training? What do you think it was? Because you weren't doing what you do now. You were almost had blinders on.
Yeah. It was. I mean, the training just evolved. I had to become. I wanted to find a system or a training style that would make me a better SEAL. And I wanted it somehow to be in strength athletics, because that's what I just, guys are, man. It's like He-Man characters and look at the Hulk and all this stuff as they're growing up. And you're like, well, that's, so you're going to be big and strong. And that's when I found strongman. And I was like, well, it's taking weird shaped things and moving them really fast a short distance. And I'm going, that's a down man drill. Maybe there's some kind of carryover, and lo and behold, it was. And that it was just finding a different training system. And then I started gaining weight. I start in a good way, transfer of weight or whatever. I started dumping off the doughy stuff and started, turning that hustle into some muscle. And that's when like the iron bug hit me, and I'm going, okay, let's see where this goes. And it was the mentality of before, going through all the stuff with soup, going, well, we're just going to keep pushing. And that's when I ended up getting hurt, because I burnt it at both ends, and I didn't understand how important what I call now the 3 R's, rest, recover, regenerate, are. That you need to, as hard as you go, you need to do just that hard, if not harder, on the recovery side, because that's where the growth and the strength comes from.
So do you think at that point that was the strongest mentally you've ever been?
You mean after
you start getting into this routine and you're figuring out, do you think that really your mental fitness kicked up too?
No, it did. Yeah. Cause it took there was a roller coaster, man. And it had definitely hit a peak at that point. Little did I know that another downward, what goes up must come down. Right. And it just, but what it did was it led me and gave me another notch. It took me to another level of being able to handle what was coming next.
Well, why don't we tell them what happened next?
So I had been experiencing a lot of TBI type stuff. I'd been blown up 5 times, 2 helicopter crashes, and then come to find out when you start studying TBI, it can actually happen with one round shot off with no headphone or no ear, with your ears not on, no your hearing protection. And I said, 1 round, huh? I was like, oh God, I'm in trouble. I was in trouble from the first Pantera concert, but yeah, man, with all the explosions and the head trauma and just massive over the year, even the poor boat guys too, of sitting in the boats, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, I was getting brain fog real bad. It was getting to the point to where my wife was like, look, you need to go get looked at. I was doing what I was calling off ramping, where if my train of thought is a highway, I would take a little exit, not know what the heck I was talking about, and sit there and circle until I'd find my way back onto the highway to the conversation and get to the end point. Sometimes I would find it, sometimes I wouldn't, but it was affecting. I was trying my best not to let it affect work, but I was having to push that much harder at work to keep up with everything, taking massive notes and just stuff that I normally would have remembered no problem, just having issues with. And then like the recall piece, right? Like I would look over and I would say, I know that's a light switch. I know it's called a light switch. but I can't find the word light switch to come out of my mouth. So once that happened, I was like, I got to check something out. And that's when I found out about the Warrior Care Coalition and Home Base. So the Red Sox put up a TBI clinic for their folks, TBI, PTSD, and up in Boston. And it was free for military to go up there. I was the first active duty soft guy that they had. And the first thing that they do is a neck and brain scan. And that's when they found out I had picked up a couple of hitchhikers along the way. And they set me down, and where it was just supposed to be me and the doctor, there's 6-8 people in there. And I'm like, what's the party for? And they're like, sir, you need to sit down. And I went, why? Did you guys find a tumor? And they're like, sir, you need to sit down. And I'm going, okay, you have my attention. And lo and behold, I had a brain tumor and a cyst. Brain tumor was about the size of a gobstopper, glued right to the back of my brainstem, and I had a cyst about the size of my hand inside my skull, pushing my brain forward. And interestingly enough, I was asymptomatic for all of that stuff, but symptomatic towards TBI. But anyway, so they gave me a bunch of choices, and that's a whole long story in and of itself. But
well, let's stop there for just a second, though.
Go ahead.
They tell you this. You've experienced lots of trauma. You've experienced lots of gnarly stuff all over the world.
Yeah.
I got to know what you're thinking when they give you this news, because it's got to feel like a sledgehammer to the stomach.
You know what's funny, man? That's part of the story that I think is a little bit entertaining, is that they sat there and they went, and they go in for like the hug, because after they tell me, because they hit you with this supposed bomb or whatever. And I went, no, don't want to hug. And they go, well, we just told you. I'm like, cool. And my first line to them was, where's the gym? And they went, what? I said, I got about an hour and a half till my next meeting with you guys for whatever the next thing was. It was a psych thing or whatever, oddly enough. And I said, I got an hour and a half. I can go crush shoulders. That's what I'm lifting today. And then go get a meal, and that's it. Where's the gym? And they're like, we just told you did it. I said, okay, cool. Well, is anything that I'm going to do make this better or worse? And they go, no. And I went, again, where's the gym? And they couldn't believe it. And I went in there, crushed it, had a great, but I told them, I was like, this is my iron therapy. This is how I get through stuff. And this is how I think through things. And I had some really good prayer sessions in there too. I went in there, crushed shoulders, felt great coming out of it. And where I would have normally probably had an uneasy feeling, I didn't have it. They told me they were like a couple different options of what could happen. They said it could shrink and go away, least likely. They said it could solidify, be a rock in your head, and then it doesn't bother you. And then they said most likely what'll happen is it'll grow, and eventually it will cut off the fluid delivery system in your spine, and your brain will dry out and you'll die. You'll just drop dead one day. And I went, huh. So what's the plan? They go, well, you're going to come back every 6 months, and we're going to monitor the growth. I went, okay, let's do it. And then I said, well, is there anything that I can do to make it worse? And they go, no. All right. They go, just go live your life. I went, all right. So I did. And it got to that point to where it grew to the size of a Titleist. And they're like, it needs to come out. And that's kind of when my mentality changed a little bit, that we're actually going to go in and, get this thing out. But all that did was it reared another hunt of, I'm going to set every PR that I could possibly set physically. And for whatever reason, that's going to satisfy whatever issues that I'm having with this type of thing, which is funny because it's the whole thing. If you take it from the Christian perspective of, dude, you know Christ, you're doing what's right, you're doing the thing. And like, heaven's in. I'm like, let's do this, rock and roll, fire it up, let's go. I've never been scared of death before. Why would I be scared of death now? So and all of that stuff and all of that training and whatever, plus the fact is that if you go in, I learned from multiple surgeries already, the more in shape that you go into a surgery, the faster you're going to heal, right? Less likelihood to get blood clots, which I'd had a real good buddy of mine, team guy, had knee surgery, got up, hour later, he's dead, had a clot because he was out of shape, right? Went right to his heart, dead. And I said, that ain't gonna be me. So, and I was already a big boy anyway. So I went back to the gym, went to the drawing board, and I was like, I'm going to do my body weight, 20 times. I'm going to do my body weight times 20 benching. I'm going to do this squatting. I'm going to do this deadlifting, this, that, and the other. And I was like, I'm going to pull a sled this far. I'm going to do this, that, this one, and I'm going to get in great shape. Well, I was in shape for deployment. I was ready to go on a fight. I was lean, mean, ready to rock and roll, going into that surgery. And went in with the best mentality I possibly could, as positive as I could. And I viewed it just as another life speed bump. That was it.
If I can say, though, when you say I'm going to set all these PRs and stuff, and you said I'm not scared of death, which I 100% believe you that you weren't. You had been through enough of death-defying stuff.
Yeah. Whew.
But when I hear that you're going to set all these PRs, I almost feel like you are not worried about death, but you are worried about leaving a legacy.
That was never my mindset about leaving a legacy. It was just like, well, if this is going to be it, I'm going to wrap it up and go big. That's it. I didn't care because just nobody knew what those numbers were. It's not like I told anybody. It was just for me.
Well, okay. I see it that way, but I almost feel like, once again, maybe legacy is not the right word, but you were proving something to yourself, maybe for the final time.
It could have been. I mean, I always said that I'm not going to go out without a fight.
Of course.
So
do not go gently.
That's it, buddy. That's, that's forever. So it might've been me, that was my fight. That was me fighting best I possibly could. Cause there was no way to really fight it other than, get a freaking knife and go to town. But,
right. Those are some gnarly pictures you sent me, though, after it
right?
was over.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Dude. Oh God, I got so many jokes, like mostly from the Luttrells, which is funny. The got in a fight with a freaking axe murderer, freaking lost a fight with a weed whacker, freaking Frankenstein went full send on you, all this. Yeah. You got all kinds of jokes. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. Those were pretty gnarly. And
it was funny too, is that people would always ask afterwards. Cause and that's, I got the long hair now, whatever, but people look and then there's some people are just bold. They're like, hey, they'll ask, what happened? And I was like, I cut myself shaving. Cause it's just like, what does it matter, man?
So I guess I go back to that question then about being good with yourself, being mentally fit. I guess at that time, then that would be your strongest.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was legitimately set for anything to happen. The weird thing was,
is that freeing?
Huh?
Is that freeing?
It is. But the weird thing is, man, is the closer I got, the more I knew I was going to be all right. That it was going to be fine. Reason being is I didn't think that I had done what God set me to do just yet. That whole thing of going back and saying, I've got something for you, that hasn't happened yet. That's going to happen. And I think, and it was one of those things where I started praying and I was like, then use this as part of the story for your glory. And he went full send.
So do you think that you found out what that thing is yet?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's and that's it. It's the collection of stories to legitimately show that nothing is impossible with God. Period. That's where you want to find no limits. That's where you go. You want to find strength. You want to find peace. You want to find joy. That's where you go.
Do you think you've forgiven yourself for breaking in the past the times that you have? Or do you think you still kind of owe a debt to the past?
No, I don't owe a debt to the past at all. The past is the past. I'm not looking back. I'm not looking behind me. I repent of my sins. And I know that by his promises and by his stripes, I'm healed, baby. That's it. Plain and simple. I know I've screwed up, and it's through messing up is where he stepped in. That's the only reason I succeeded. Plain and simple. People don't understand. You don't grasp. And they think that it's this, the talking to the freaking man in the sky. Dude, it's something. Once you get it, I can't explain it other than it's absolutely awesome. Now, we live in a society of inflationary language. The word awesome was reserved for God, creator of the world, creator of the daggum universe. It's an awesome feeling. And to know that even when you mess up, I got pops waiting with open arms every single time, waiting on me and going, just come to me, man. I'm here. That's freedom. And that's why I believe that even back in the day when all his boys were in prison, they said that they were free because they had him. Lock me up, do whatever you want, beat me, doesn't matter. I don't care what you do. This is fleeting. You know, this is mortal. Your soul knows that it's not. That's why there's always the constant, you know, you talk about the spirit versus the flesh. Flesh knows it's going to die. That's why it's always fighting against the spirit, because the spirit knows it's eternal. And it's up to you to choose which side you're going to become. And that's the whole two beasts thing. You got two beasts, and whichever one you feed more is the one that's going to overcome you.
Yeah, it's the same as the grass grows where you water it.
Yep, absolutely. 100%.
To kind of start wrapping up our conversation, you talk a lot about divine savagery.
Yeah.
I want to know how you balance the brutal parts of being a warrior, seeing the things you've done, being everywhere in the world, and your spiritual and healing journey. How do you mesh all three of those together?
I wouldn't be one without the other. Right? That's the only thing that got me through all of it. Whether I recognized it at the time or not, he was walking with me, man. And it was me being stubborn and hard-headed that didn't realize it at times. But once you get it, there's nothing better. You literally do not understand what you're capable of. You cruise into that world, into that level, into that realm, battle's already won, man.
So how do you make peace with failure? Because everyone fails.
Oh, absolutely.
So how do you make peace with that?
Don't be angry with it. You use failures as rungs in the ladder to success, as learning points. Learn not to repeat it, what caused it, and do a good analysis, and then correct it and make it better for next time.
So let's move into your training that you do now, your business that you do now, and how you incorporate all that stuff into what you're doing with the future. You're turning that next page, you're starting that next chapter.
Yeah.
How do you take all that and what are you doing in this new endeavor?
Well, as far as the training system, I was fortunate enough to be taken on by the famous Westside Barbell, and they're the ones that are kind of teaching me, or have taught me, and continue as what I've learned too. That's a continuous process as well, to understand the biomechanics, to understand the physics, to understand the mathematics that goes into training and learning a system that is good for absolutely anyone, from the tier one athlete and operator down to, you know, housewife or child even. But to be able to use that, and plus everything that I've learned from that and everything that I've learned from my past, and just like in the military, you do things in threes, right? So to bring that to the speaking world, to whether it be motivational, whether it be keynote, whether it be leadership, whether it be team building, whether it be mental resilience, it does not matter. Talking about all of those things and the things that led up to me being where I'm at, in hopes that from my extreme, that whatever's happening in somebody else's life, they can become better in some way, shape, or form. Go through something that's going to make them tougher, or be able to build their body and mind and spirit to be able to become stronger and handle anything that's going to come their way. So through speaking, through leadership, through business optimization, going in and using the military mindset and way of things of that nature, taking it into the real world and going from the battlefield to the boardroom and saying, this is some ways that might actually be able to help your business move a little bit better, and how you want to work the team and how you want to work the leadership and how they mesh together. And then the wellness side. So that's the strength training, doing a little bit of coaching, and going in and refining strength projects and strength programs for different businesses and for different folks, whether it's on a big level or a smaller level, and going in and doing talks about strength and about the body, and how you can make it better and stronger and tougher, more resilient.
It's interesting that you use battlefield to the boardroom. I'm friends with Clint Bruce, and he says the same thing, from the battlefield to the boardroom.
Yeah.
Do you think that this that you're doing right now is I guess the thing that you're most proud of in your life? Because we've talked about being proud to be a Marine, being proud to be a SEAL, but work related, do you think this is probably the most proud you've been, is able to take all this knowledge and hand it over to so many people?
You know, and I know you asked me this question, and I answered it very carefully too. I think I put like not applicable or doesn't apply or something like that. Or I said I don't have one, and I don't, because I don't look at pride as a good thing.
Okay.
I look at pride coming before a fall. And because I've learned, and I read it a lot, but I've learned it too much in life to be prideful about things. I'm happy with where I'm at. I feel like that I'm on the road now to what the good Lord wants me to do, to be able to help folks out. And it's finding another bit of fulfillment, being able to have, family saying they're proud of me, wife and kids fulfilled, happy, be a good dad, be a good husband, be a better one, and be what he needs me to be all around. And then, once I start circling the drain, then making sure that everything he needed me to do gets done.
All right, let's kind of start with rapid fire. We're going to ask, these are just the first answer that comes to your mind, and this is how we're going to kind of wrap up our conversation. All right.
Okay.
Greatest book that's ever had an impact on your life?
Bible.
Greatest movie that's ever had an impact on your life?
First Blood.
Greatest person that's ever had an impact on your life?
Jesus.
What is, would you say, the most important thing you've ever done?
Been born.
That's an interesting one. I've never heard someone say that. That's a really interesting answer to that one. And finally, greatest concert ever?
Ozfest 97.
Why?
Oh my gosh. Because it was a who's who of metal bands, man. It was the very first Ozfest. And it was 12 stages at Coca-Cola Starplex in Dallas, man. And Ozzy still had his faculties about him. He did an amazing job up there. He hadn't quite gotten back yet with Sabbath, but Pantera came out just before them and just dominated. And Type O Negative was there, Sepultura was there. Like it was a who's who of metal concert, man. And they all came out. All the drummers came out and did this huge drum thing, and Vinnie Paul was leading. It was legit, man. But yeah, I'd say Ozfest 97. I mean, all the people, like, nobody. It's interesting too. People say, "Oh, metal guys are so violent, and this, that, and the other." But they're usually some of the nicest people you ever meet. But like, even in the pit, man, some pits are gnarly. Those pits, for whatever reason, it was literally just a fun time. 97. I mean, I was 18, man. So, I mean,
yeah.
Nowadays, I don't know what they're doing, but no, it was the very first one. You said best ever.
Right.
Ozfest 97 was the best one I ever went to.
Yeah.
Very first
Ozfest. That's, but of course Pantera was in there. So that had to be part of the answer.
Of course.
All right, let's talk about where people can find you. This is including social media, websites, all that kind of stuff, where people can find out a little more about you or the services that you're offering.
Sure. You want to find me on the business part. It's divinesavagery.com. You want to find me on LinkedIn, just look up Tommy Richardson. I'm on there. And I'll do most of my stuff on there anyways. And then I just started up the Instagram thing, and that's the fun lifting side of the house. But that's raise.your.horn, the Instagram handle. That's pretty much where you'll see me, man.
Well, man, I'm so glad we got to do this. I think this was a fantastic conversation.
That was fun, man.
And I'm really glad that you did it. Guys, you know where you can find Tommy. Let's talk about where you can find me. As always, you can find me on Instagram at the DTD_podcast. You can find me on Facebook at the DTD podcast. And you can find me on YouTube, where all these conversations, they're in video form, at the DTD podcast. We're trying out some stuff with Dynamic Tales Delivered, Truth Serum. We're changing the name around, but if you put in Dynamic cocktails delivered, you should be able to find us easy. Let's talk about the one-stop shop, though, dtdpodcast.net. That's got Tommy with his own page. It's got pictures of him. It's got all the links to where you can find him. It has a little more of his story, and then you can watch the audio or video version, whichever one you want. dtdpodcast.net. Make sure you stop by there, join the mailing list, all of those kind of things. If you like what we're doing, share, like, and subscribe. Be a friend, tell a friend, do all those things. But the most important thing, let's talk about the guys that make this show happen. Let's start with nomadicresearch.com. If you want shirts, hoodies, backpacks, anything to make you look cooler in an airport or just life in general, nomadicresearch.com. Make sure you go over there and check it out. Trident Coffee. If you're into health, or you're into mushrooms, nootropics, all of that in a different look at a cold brew coffee, tridentcoffee.com. That's DTD15 will get you 15% off your order. My buddy Mac down in Florida at Mac's Belts. They're the toughest leather belt on earth. Whether you want it for the range, whether you want it for dress, whatever you might need it for, it will be able to take care of it. I have 2 of them. I wear them every day, no matter what I'm doing. MaxBelts.com. And then go check out my buddy down in Southern Pines at HatchetBrewing.com. They got hats, they got shirts, they got all kinds of swag. They even have 2 brew houses that you can visit while you're in North Carolina. Make sure you go check them out. HatchetBrewing.com. Guys, that's going to be it for this week. I'm so glad once again. I'm so honored that you came on here, Tommy. That's going to be it. That's Tommy. I'm DJ. This has been the show. We'll catch you guys on the next one. See you later. This episode is brought to you by Trident Coffee, the veteran-owned brand where every sip inspires you to live life full steam ahead. At Trident, they are more than just coffee. They are storytellers. It's crafted by veterans. Their instant cold brew is perfect for those who serve, those who have served, and anyone who values wellness. Featuring natural ingredients like organic mushrooms, adaptogens, and nootropics, it's more than just a morning pick-me-up. It's your new wellness ritual. Enjoy it at home or on the go, wherever your day takes you. Trident Coffee isn't just about great-tasting coffee. It's about empowering you to be the healthiest version of yourself, because great veterans make great citizens. Try their instant cold brew coffee today and taste the freedom of wellness. Remember, when you choose Trident, you're not just choosing coffee. You're choosing a path of connection through health and wellness. Use promo code DTD15 for 15% off your order.